What if the greatest barrier to women's success isn't external, but the silent grip of sexual shame? April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and in this episode of Positivity Hack Delivered, we'll have a powerful conversation with Dr. Tina Shermer Sellers. Welcome to PhD with Woman on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today we are going to talk about breaking the silence, unmasking sexual shame, and reclaiming women's power. Episode 178 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on Women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo, and empathy is critical when you are freeing yourself from sexual shame. First, let me remind you what happened in the world of technology. Congratulations to our former Positivity Hack Delivered guest, Elaine Montilla, for obtaining a new certification, Executive Women in Leadership Certificate from Cornell University. Your commitment, Elaine, to growth and leadership is truly inspiring. Hooray to Maya Stenke for successful presentation on SOTI solutions and all aspects of security and mobile devices management. Keep inspiring and leading the way in tech. Finally, imagine a world with accessible, comprehensive sex education for everyone. Cindy Gallop's Make Love Not Porn Academy will Inspire Access. With Inspire Access is making that vision a reality. Be part of this transformative initiative. Invest in the future. We encourage our community to support a project that will redefine education for generations. Let's go back to our topic, breaking the silence, unmasking sexual shame, and reclaiming women's power. Our guest, a licensed sex and gender feminist psychotherapist, best-selling author, and global speaker, will uncover how sexual shame quietly shapes women's confidence, career decisions, and relationships. From understanding how early messages about body autonomy affect self-worth to exposing the role media plays and perpetuating exploitation, Dr. Sellers will dive deep into the invisible forces that limit women's potential. She'll share strategies to raise shame-free, confident children and empower women to reclaim their authentic selves. Dr. Tina, where in the world are you joining us from today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here with you. I am coming to you from Sandy, Oregon, which is about 40 miles southeast of Portland, Oregon, really close to Mount Hood.
Excellent. I'm joining from TCI, Turks and Caicos Island, a small island, but we have also this big problem of sexual education and well-being for the future generations is a big topic, especially with lots of immigrants from neighboring countries, including Haiti and DR. Dr. Sellers, you've said sexual shame begins in childhood. You've written books about it. How do those early whispers about our bodies grow into lifelong barriers for women?
Wow, what a great question. We really are, in many ways, a compilation of our experiences. In our earliest experiences, I'll say those that happen in the first 10 years of our lives, do a lot to shape how we feel and see ourselves. So if you think about it, shame happens because we do something that's natural when we're a child, when we're a year old or 2 or 3 or 4, excuse me, and we do something natural and it bothers or scares or frightens or makes angry our caregiver. So an example of that would be you've got a 3-year-old carrying a glass bottle of milk and they're bringing it to the table, trying to be helpful, and it slips out of their hand and it hits the floor and it goes in a million places. And the parent just gets really angry at the child, but the child doesn't understand that that was an accident and that it's not about them, and and the parent doesn't respond that way. The parent gets very, very angry. Let's say that kind of an experience is a natural experience where a child will feel shame because they've gotten in trouble from just doing a natural thing, right? Well, with sexual shame, that actually also starts often when children are little, if they're growing up in homes that are largely silent or silent and shaming around shame. And that happens because a child tends to find their genitals, if you will, naturally when they're getting their diaper changed or they're in the tub when they're right around a year old. Their hand will land on their genitals. And that is often a great day for that child because the child is beginning to discover that that's a part of their body that has lots of wonderful nerve endings. And as humans, we're drawn to connection and pleasure. That's core to who we are. And so, but if the parent who sees the child find their genitals, and that is a shameful thing to them as an adult because they were shamed, they often then slap their child's hand away, or they go, gross, that's yucky, or that's dirty, or don't, or something like that in a loud voice, which scares the child. But they don't understand why they're getting in trouble. And so they, this will happen. And the important thing to know here is that when a child is a year old and they're getting in trouble for something, they don't have the cognitive development to say, oh, I better not do that in front of my parent again. They're going to continue to do that thing until they're 3, 4, 5 years old. And by this point, by 5, they've started to figure out, oh, I need to go get a tissue when I want to pick my nose, or I need to go to the bathroom or to my room if I want to touch myself or whatever. But they have gotten in trouble in whatever way that was at the beginning. That's happened to them now multiple times through their first year, second year, third year, into their fourth year. And so they've continued to get the message, something must be wrong with me. I keep getting in trouble, right? And of course, it's not cognitive because they don't even have language yet. It's visceral. It's a shame inside their bodies that they get in trouble. And so that's where this sort of feeling comes from once the person is an adult, because they got shamed hundreds and hundreds of times as they were developing.
The studies show that children as young as 6 start associating body parts with shame. So what would you say to a mother trying to rewrite the script for her daughter or her son?
Yeah. So what we know from research is that 6-year-old girls are already modifying their diets, and then of course like 50% of them, and that this number goes up as they get older. So they're picking up from commercials that they're not good enough. So really what it takes is, first, it takes a parent or caregiver that understands child development and child sexual development, body development, self-esteem development. And so when the child is discovering their genitals, that parent is there to say, yep, that's your vulva. That's a wonderful part of you. Or, yep, that's your penis. That's a wonderful part of you. Let's finish getting you diapered, right? And when they're continuing to do it, you say, I know you love that part of your body. I think it's a wonderful part, but I want to help you learn that when we want to touch that part of our body, we go in our room or we go in the bathroom. And you slowly introduce that idea when they're 2 and 3. So by the time they're 4, they've got that figured out. And this is the kind of thing that you want to be able to do, just to give them instruction. You're giving them instruction about every other part of their world: eyes, nose, ears, toes, doggies, cats, whatever. You want to also tell them about their body. And tell them that it's a wonderful part of their body. All parts are. We take care of our body. And you make it a very normal, common thing that you talk about. And this is what you do. This helps build confidence. Then, as children are exposed to things on the internet or on TV, like commercials, help them learn how to critically think. What is that? What is that show trying to tell us? Did you know that there's a camera behind that? Who is this show for? Who is it not for? You help them develop critical thinking so that when they start getting messages about how they should dress or how they should look, then you want to be able to say, well, that is a commercial. Why do you think that they're saying that to you? And you help them critically think. So then your child is equipped to be able to choose what information is actually helpful and what information might be exploitive, because these have been conversations that you've had. In my book, Shameless Parenting, I literally broke it down into birth to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8 years, so that parents actually know, what do I need to pay attention to in these 2 years? What are the top books I can read to my kid in these 2 years? What can I do for myself so that when my child starts doing these things, being curious in these ways, I feel comfortable, and I have all these ways to sort of guide parents through so that they feel like somebody's holding their hand, because that was likely not done for them.
Well, it's a book on how to heal, how to raise shame-free, relationally confident children, and it's been bestseller in 5 categories. What's the most radical act of parenting you've seen transform a family's relationship with sexuality?
Really, it has been going through the information that's in that book. First, imagining that you're reparenting you, the part of you that didn't have a patient informed other to help you through. Now, if you did this stuff, parenting around body awareness and sexual awareness, body autonomy, all of that won't feel scary to you. But if you did not grow up with a parent who knew how to guide you calmly and relationally in helpful ways, then a lot of things like being walked in on, catching your child with their pants down and exploring somebody else's body and they're exploring them, all of that is going to freak you out, and you're just not going to know. And so all that freak out feeling that you have inside tells you is that when you were curious about these things, there wasn't someone who could calmly explain it to you. So I always tell parents the best thing to do, or really anyone that grew up in a home that was silent or silent and shaming, is walk yourself through that Shameless Parenting book. Literally imagine when you're in the 0 to 2 section that you are loving on and reparenting that 2-year-old part of you that didn't get that. And then go to the next section and imagine that you're reparenting that toddler or that preschooler or that grade schooler or that pre-adolescent or that adolescent. Walk through and just really imagine loving on yourself and healing and seeing as good and wonderful the curiosities that you had at those different ages. That will then equip you to know how to do it for children and for any child. And it also you'll feel the shame literally start to come off of you as you do these things for yourself. And so then the thought of children bringing those curiosities to you sounds more like fun and interesting than it sounds like frightening and scary.
Here's a stat. Kids taught correct anatomical terms are 50% less likely to be abused. So how does language become armor against shame?
It's exactly what I'm talking about here. I mean, and I love that question because it's knowledge, it's awareness, it's truth. So when kids are equipped with knowledge, awareness, and truth about themselves, their bodies, what's magnificent and wonderful about their bodies, how we treat people, how we want to be treated, how we get help when we need to get help, how to determine who is safe to get help from. These kinds of things all equip a child that when exploitation occurs, they can recognize it. And they can say, that's not true. I don't feel safe with that person. I'm going to go find a safe person to talk to or to help me here. They're equipped. And so when we give children nothing, and we run in the United States, I mean, we run our economy on exploitation, right? We are constantly using people to sell products, right? We are exploiting all the time. And so it becomes something that kids don't recognize can be hurtful to them because no one has taught them that. And so if there's an older person who has much more power and is able to manipulate, then all they have to do is speak kindly to the child or tell the child that they want a particular something. And the child just goes with what's at face value, which is this person's being nice, and doesn't have the ability to critically think, well, they shouldn't be wanting to do that. They shouldn't want me to go with them. That's a stranger. I'm not going to go with a stranger, because they've been equipped with the information to know how to keep themselves safe and what exploitation is. It starts really early, and there's little pieces of it that you give kids at different ages. And that's really the part that parents need to learn, is what's appropriate at this age, and then this age, and then this age, and this age.
As Cindy Gallop, our previous guest on PhD, points out, we are raised by our parents to behave well, with good manners, a work ethic, sense of responsibility and accountability, but we are rarely taught to behave well in bed with values like empathy, sensitivity, generosity, kindness, honesty, and respect. And here is one question I received. Of course, we are not going to talk publicly about whoever sent us this question, because we are inclusive community. And here is what she says. After nearly 8 years together, he shows no sexual interest in me at all. I'm 35, he's 34. We were planning to have children, but I don't feel like it, because we've had this discussion multiple times, but nothing ever changes. Our sex life was enjoyable until about 4 years ago. I've been turned down so often that I've given up trying, as it makes me feel embarrassed. And when we do have sex, it feels like he's doing me a favor. What would you say to our lovely member?
Yes. Oh, what a heartbreaking story. And this sounds like a complex situation, one that I don't know that there is a simple answer to, and I couldn't possibly imagine or read into one. But the curiosities that come up for me is, tell me a little bit about what it was like for you to grow up around sexuality in your body. And I would want to know that answer from both people. I would want to know what was good in the relationship, what was working really well. How did that look? How was that for each of you? Did you feel comfortable talking about things? Were you able to change things up? What was really working? I'd want to see the full picture of that. And then I'd want to know what happened 4 years ago. Was there any particular event that happened to either one of you together, collectively, or apart, that may have shifted one's desire for sharing connection and pleasure with their partner? So it sounds like one of them, something shifted. We don't really know what that is. And these are really the kinds of situations where I say it can be hard to figure these out all on your own. And if you can find a good therapist that is also trained in sexuality and sexual health, you can have conversations to help you figure out what's going on. And really trying to understand what that is. And they can be complex reasons. So I'm not really sure what it is here, but at a basic level, most often people are wanting to share connection and pleasure in their lives. And something is interrupting their ability to share that with each other, to share connection and to share pleasure. Whether that looks like this behavior or that behavior, people like different things in their sexual lives. So I can't begin to imagine exactly what that is for this couple. But what is getting in the way of them being able to share connection and pleasure with each other so that they feel well bonded and they feel safe with each other? So, yeah.
Well, here is an interesting statistic. I was listening to a podcast last night, and it was talking about 50 random people being together in a room, and they had a set of questions. Some were just like, water cooler questions, but some were much deeper. And after a week or two, the ones who had the more deeper conversation, the people who had more vulnerable conversation, they would reach out to these people again just to check on them, because this conversation made this connection deeper. So maybe that's also opportunity for our listener, our dear lady who sent us a question, to really have this honest conversation, for starters.
That's a really, really good point. There are different things that build intimacy and connection with people. And one of them is, do we tell each other the truth? And are we able to listen to that truth? Do we do what we say we're going to do? or do we keep letting each other down? Do we have promises? Do we keep those promises or those commitments to each other, or do we let each other down? Those can very much affect whether somebody feels safe to disclose with somebody. And I think those studies really show that when we share vulnerably with each other and we're willing to listen and we can hold on to ourselves and feel safe and, be empathetic and compassionate with each other as we're listening, we often can find our way through. We move towards feeling seen, known, loved, and accepted. And those are very core desires as humans for us in our relationships.
Seen and accepted. Let's go back to naming things. You mentioned we talked about kids who are learning words and who are learning to express themselves. Here is a fact: the word vagina was taboo in medical text until the 17th century. How do we break centuries of silence? You're the author of book Sex, God, and the Conservative Church, which challenges religious teachings on sexuality. What's one toxic narrative about faith and desire you're determined to dismantle?
Oh, great question. The ideas that got started in the 4th century when Christianity was becoming an empire or institutional religion was that the body was bad and the spirit was good. So it bifurcated or separated the body, when really every single human is bio, body, psycho, emotional, social, interpersonal, sexual. We like connection and pleasure. We like to use our bodies to seek connection and pleasure. And we're spiritual. We're drawn to things that are deeply meaningful to us. And yet the church separated our bodies, our sexuality, our desire to connect with our bodies from our spirit. And that is a false dichotomy. It is not the way we experience ourselves. So I would love to dismantle that by making it just as common to teach our children about their bodies, their sexuality, their curiosities, boundaries, consent. All of those things would be just as normalized as we teach them about how to get dressed, or how to do their schoolwork, or how to be a good friend, or all the other things that we teach children about. In the United States, we focus on your career and making money, and again, material things. And yet we know that that is not what makes people happy. It makes them comfortable. What makes people happy is how strong are their relationships. The other thing I would love to dismantle, which was very much a part of the early church teachings and has influenced many, many societies around the country, is patriarchy, that men are more important than women and children, when in fact we are all equally important. We are all miracles in and of ourselves. There's never been another one of us on this planet. So for each of us to live as fully, authentically into who we are is what is best. And for us to have much more horizontal forms of leadership than hierarchical ones that silence people who are below other people. Patriarchy has done us no favors, for men or for women or for us as a culture. So I would love to see us dismantle that. And comprehensive sex education is actually a step in that direction.
Cultural narratives from popular media to traditional norms have shaped our understanding of sexuality and often embed a sense of unworthiness and inequity. And algorithms are working against us. I have to tell you, Dr. Tina, I've tried to promote today's event and it just was going nowhere, even though it's sexual education. The word sex just makes it being dumped into the gray area. You've called media a silent architect of exploitation. How does today's digital world distort the woman's sense of power, and how can we fight back?
Oh, wow. What a good question. Power is distorted whenever we make people, like men, more important than women, or money more important than how you behave. And in cultures that are privileging money and power over people, you end up seeing hierarchies that crush people's spirit, crush their desire to live authentically, to bring their own dreams to fruition. And it's really one of the things that now that is crushing the United States is we have allowed money and power to be privileged over people for now since the early 80s. And we didn't have it figured out before then, but really since about 1980, we've really been going in one direction that's been all about capitalism and increasing people's wealth and power. Well, now we have such a huge difference between those people who are earning the most and those people who are more in your middle class and lower. And it's crushing. And this happens in societies. We've seen it happen in other societies. They often try to become more authoritarian to hold on to their power, instead of valuing that we all thrive when we are for each other and for ourselves. Not for ourselves against each other, but we're for ourselves and we're for each other. I'm for your success and I'm for your success. What does it mean for me to support you? How can you support me? How do we work together as a community? How do we help each other out? Those are the societies that thrive. Those societies are not patriarchal. They're much more matriarchal. They're more community oriented because they know that when you thrive, I thrive, and when I thrive, you thrive. They're built on that principle.
Lisa Phillips, after encountering Jeffrey Epstein, returned to New York feeling very confused and filled with shame. As a therapist, what's the most heartbreaking story a client has shared about sexual shame, and what gave you hope for their healing?
I have witnessed so many stories that are heartbreaking around sexual shame. The commonalities are often that people have been hurt in their sexual development along the way. That could be child sexual abuse. That could be sexual abuse at some other point in their lives. It could be in a highly religious home where children's curiosity is constantly shamed, and they're told that it's bad, that it will separate them from God, that it will ruin their future if they act out in any way. And so what I've seen in those people who are naturally a little anxious or a little earnest is that they have believed that deep in their bodies, believed that their body is bad and not to be trusted. So when they get older and they find themselves falling in love with somebody, they can't, not only can they not touch themselves and understand their own pleasure in their own body, but they can't allow anybody else to touch them. And oftentimes the body, we see this in pelvic pain situation, the body has literally closed down because the fear and the anxiety became bodied. And so then their desire to learn how to share their body in a way that feels good to them and have their partner do the same, all of that becomes difficult for them to do because their body literally is having reactions of its own. I also remember talking to a man who grew up in a highly religious home and was taught all of these things. The body is bad, you're not to be trusted, but was also told as a boy, men aren't to be trusted. Men are animals. They don't know how to control themselves. Was taught that because there is an idea inside of Christianity that women and in culture that women are responsible for when men act out. If a woman is assaulted, she is asked, well, what were you wearing? Were you drinking? It's as if it was her fault, right? So this is very prevalent in both a culture, American culture for sure, and in the Christian church. This young man, when I met him, he was in his later 20s. He said, I've been afraid to go out with anybody because I'm not sure I can trust myself. Because he really took that message in that he could be an animal. He could all of a sudden become an animal. And so it scared him. And it was heartbreaking to me because he was one of the kindest, most generous, gentle, spirited humans that I had met. So I have seen this happen in multiple ways where sexual shame has literally closed down someone's ability to both open their heart or open their body to somebody who had shown themselves to be safe and loving. That's heartbreaking to me because being seen, known, loved, and accepted inside a loving relationship is a place that we often can build a real home, a home base where we can then go out and explore our other passions and aspire to be a person that makes a difference in the world.
Thank you, Dr. Tina, for sharing these stories. We have a couple of comments, so you will have a chance to have some water in the meantime. Olga Vasina says, fascinating show. Welcome, Dr. Tina. And she also says, delighted to say, whatever happened in my first 10 years, what feels totally natural is tuning into PhD each Wednesday. Thank you, Olga. And we have Cindy Gallup, who gives us hearts. Thank you so much, Cindy. You're always an inspiration to our community. One of the micro actions, little steps, I have to say, Dr. Tina, was talking to my friend who had always problem with accepting the fact, the compliments about her. So she doesn't believe in her body being beautiful. I would call her, sometimes and tell her how beautiful she looks. She would not believe that. What are other micro actions or micro steps to change these neural pathways? Because apparently neuroscience reveals shame lights up in the brain like physical pain. So how do we help women rewrite those neural pathways towards self-love?
Oh, very, very good question. You know, we often need to start by asking ourselves, where did we learn not to like our body? Where did we learn that? And kind of deconstruct that story a little bit. Did we get pieces of it from caregivers? Did we get pieces of it from friends in school? Did we get pieces of it from the media? Right? And then how has it served me to not see my body as good or to not see myself as beautiful? And begin to confront that. One of the things that is, I think, really true is that if we've got 50% of 6-year-old girls already modifying their diets because they think they're not okay the way they look now, then we know that culture is playing a huge part. Marketing is playing a huge part. And so I'm often saying to people, what I hope for you is not to get to your deathbed and then realize you didn't appreciate the body that you had, but that you start as soon as you recognize that you don't love your body and you start to take it back. You're going to take it back from culture. You're going to take it back from that mean uncle that you had. You're going to take it back and you're going to start by saying, this body, if I get to get up in the morning and I'm not racked in pain, this is a good body. And I am going to work to love it, to see it as the pen that's allowing me to write the poetry of my life. I can see, I can hear, I can smell, I can taste, I can hug, I can hold, I can appreciate. This body is allowing me to do all of these things. I am hell-bent on learning to love my body. So it becomes a daily practice that you do. And as you make it a daily practice to say, yeah, however your body is. I'm a Swede, so I have a very thick body. I have always been strong and thick. That's how I am. So rather than say I don't look like a model, I say I look like the rest of my relatives pretty much. Heredity shapes your body more than anything. And you have a body that is worth celebrating if it allows you to live your life that day. So it does take a lot of practice. That's how we rewire the brain, is we work on our thoughts and our behaviors to support the direction we want to go. And in time, the feelings are going to come behind where we start to go, okay, this is a good body. This is a good day, and I'm going to celebrate my body.
That's fascinating, because I actually came across some studies, some little actions and little practices that are useful. Let me just break it down. First is complete a self-assessment quiz titled "Where Does My Shame Live?" This exercise invites you to indicate specific areas, body image, desire, relationship roles, where sexual shame is most strongly felt. Then create a shame map By journaling instances when you felt inhibited, identify whether these feelings stem from personal experiences, relational trauma, or broader societal influences. And then, final microaction, practice mirror affirmations for 5 minutes each morning. Note any shifts in emotion in a dedicated journal.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. You've studied global cultures. What's one tradition that celebrates sexuality in a way that could teach the modern world about
Mm.
empowerment?
Yeah, great question. Most of our Northern European countries, Holland, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Iceland, they all have comprehensive sex education. In fact, I know in Sweden they call it life education program. I have the Dutch curriculum here. So they have things for 4 to 5 year olds, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way up to 18. And they have specific things that they have them learn about and focus on and think about and values to decide for themselves throughout their development. As children do this, they grow in confidence about who they are and how they are. They also grow to appreciate diversity, how people are different from them, and that's how it's supposed to be. They learn how to understand things like desire and the difference between desire and action, that they are responsible for what they say and do, but their feelings are a wonderful part of them. Their feelings don't have to determine what they say and do. So they learn about discipline and when discipline is important to exercise, because if I go do that now, I might hurt somebody or I might not get this done or whatever. So they learn about priorities and they learn about discipline. And they learn about sort of the more complex relational things that go in, like emotional intelligence, that they'll learn those pieces along the way. Relational intelligence, they'll learn pieces of that along the way. And they learn body autonomy and how to appreciate the body that they were given and how they are in the world. And all you really see this when you travel to those countries, because those countries have lower STI rates, lower teen pregnancy rates, lower abortion rates. The people are often in relationships that are more egalitarian because the cultures themselves are more egalitarian, and children learn about the value of themselves and others along the way. So really, it's the sex life education that are done, the social emotional learning and the body learning and all the things about attachment and desire and all that. Those learnings end up serving people's lives in really, I would say, every area of their life benefits from having learned along the way that kind of life education that they do in those countries.
Yeah, research says women who embrace sexual confidence are 30% more likely to advocate for themselves at work. Why
Yes.
is this connection so profound?
I love that you found that study. There's not, that has not been studied much, but we are beginning to, and I have a colleague who's a researcher in that area. Women who have body confidence, sexual confidence, an understanding of who they are as a bodied human, those people have a kind of what I call erotic empowerment, like a life force empowerment, where if somebody has a kind of confidence at work, that doesn't necessarily translate to confidence in their interpersonal or most intimate relationships. But when women have confidence in their interpersonal relationships and in their intimate relationships, in themselves, in their body, they are much more likely to act in empowered, grounded way out in the world. And we really need to be doing more research to that can demonstrate what shifts happen for women when they begin to see themselves as a bodied human as good and dynamic. So I'm so grateful that you found that piece of research. That's really great, because I know there's not a lot of it.
Well, there is also the ancient Mesopotamia priestess story, which they revered sexuality as sacred. We've lost so much wisdom in the process, and you
Yeah.
mentioned some other cultures. what can we do to bring it back? Because the Me Too movement seems to be like a marketing stunt. Nobody talks about it nowadays. So I'm just wondering how we can change the status quo and really have this open conversation.
Yeah, I really think that what we've seen in cultures that provide comprehensive sex education all the way through, or families that determine to heal themselves and then bring their children up that way, these are people that have more confidence and competence in their life and are less reactive. They have more of a sense of self. They can see what their strengths are. They can see what their growing edges are. They can hold that. They're less reactive. And this really, I believe that providing comprehensive sexual health or life education in this way, which is relational education, it is emotional intelligence education, it is body intelligence and information. When we provide this, these are people who end up having more, they're more equipped to make a difference in their lives. So I really see it as an inroad, and I've watched it happen in people's lives, students that I've taught, and the difference that they're doing with their kids than was done with them. So I really think that's our way.
We have a comment from IPOV. In Patrick's opinion, it is a great irony that the digital world affords us such ability to communicate good relationships and personal improvement, yet the network overseers are scared of spreading the knowledge. And
Sure.
he also adds, excellent shows, ladies. Ladies. Thank you, Dr. Tina, and stay perfectly brilliant, Beata. Thank you so much, Patrick. We are grateful for support from men because we need to have this open conversation. As you mentioned, Dr. Tina, men are also suffering from sexual shame, from all these neural pathways that told them to behave certain way. As we mentioned before, Cindy Gallop has this platform for changing sexual norms. Make love, not porn, she says. She encourages everybody to have an honest conversation and see what real bedroom looks like. It's not the porn version of life. It's not the Netflix digitized and filtered version. Sometimes it's all about being human, for starters. Now, let's go to if you could raise one lie society tells women about their bodies, what would it be, and what truth would you shout from the rooftops?
I think that one of the messages that is least helpful for women is that their lives and bodies and voices and choices are to be in service of men.
Absolutely.
Or in service of their children, in service of, fill in the blank, in service of XYZ. As opposed to, you are a miracle. You are an amazing human that has never walked this planet before. There's never been anyone quite like you. And the biggest gift that you could give the world is for you to be as fully you as you can, and helping kids dream about that, wonder about that. When do I feel the best? When do I really appreciate my mind or my creativity or my strength or my dancing or my whatever? Helping kids to appreciate what is uniquely them and then live fully into that. Our girls need to see that. They also need lots of conversations about, well, if I think of you as like my little princess, or I don't know, however you want to call me, like my incredible child, right? How do you believe you should be treated? What is kindness? When are we treated with respect? Understanding power abuses. So if power abuses happen in the home, an older brother is trying to take advantage of them, everybody stops and says, whoa, whoa, whoa. If that's not fair, if you wouldn't have been okay with you if that was you that happened to, then that's an abuse of power. We don't abuse power in this family. We don't manipulate in this family. So you teach kids, both boys and girls, but especially girls, to recognize exploitation and know how to stand up against it, know how to ask for help, that kind of thing. But to see them as authentically powerful and that the world needs them to be fully themselves. That's what I would be shouting from the rooftops, and really helping parents to do it in a way that their child fully lives into it. And then, I guess when I speak about power abuses, I want to say that I think boys need sometimes a different message. They need a message that's about power abuse. They need a message about, no, you don't get to take advantage of someone else simply because you can. That's an abuse of power, and that's not kind, and that's hurtful. So they have to be able to recognize that too.
Well, there is this discussion about we teach girls how to avoid sexual predators. We never teach boys how to not to become a sexual predator.
Right. And sexual predator is going to be down the road somewhere, right? It's going to be, you're talking to them at 10, 12, 13, or somewhere in there about that. But way before that, at 6, if you notice that a child is trying to grab a toy from somebody else or trying to manipulate in some way, you have to stop it there and say, let's talk about how you're talking to your friend right now. Right? Or how you are using your body to get what you want because you're bigger than your friend, right? That is not kind. That is not the way we behave in this family. We treat people with kindness, and we're patient. If they're not ready to share their toy, we say, that's fine, but when you're finished, could you share your toy with me, please? We teach about, manipulation, and it's fine to want, but it's not fine to manipulate, right? And we teach this to boys because they're going to grow up in a society that tells them it's okay to go after whatever you want. And if you hurt people along the way, it doesn't matter. And that, in fact, is not true.
As you mentioned, Dr. Tina, we can together have much more impact if we support each other rather than fight with each other or compete with each other. However, there is one competition I would like to point out to. Final truth bomb. The clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings, double the penis, yet wasn't fully mapped until 1998. What does this invisibility say about whose pleasure matters, Dr. Tina?
Absolutely. Let me just say that was more recently found that the clitoris has 11,000 nerve endings, so significantly more than the head of the penis. It also is the only organ on a human body, male or female human body, that has one purpose, and that purpose is pleasure. And that was given to women, right? We need to be a culture that is confident enough in them, each person in themselves, that we can say, wow, women have incredible bodies. They have incredible wisdom. They have incredible tendencies to care about community and think collaboratively versus just hierarchically, right? There are so many ways in which when we put women to the side and we let patriarchy make the decisions, we end up causing so much more pain and suffering than needs to be. And we actually don't get as far with our creative endeavors as we would if we were working together. So yeah, I think the woman's body says so much. Her orgasms say so much.
Absolutely. And since we are talking about women and we are talking about famous women, Eleanor Roosevelt once said, women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water. So in life, how are you in hot water, Dr. Tina? How are you brewing?
Good question. I would say that the water temperature is definitely going up as we watch what's happening in the United States. And it is activating me. It is activating lots of people around me across the whole country. And I have been in hot water many times. I have a good sense of my own strength. But I think that this is what we're facing as a culture right now is going to invite a lot of people to confront how much strength and courage do they have to stand up and say, we deserve better. We deserve better. And I'm willing to fight for that. So there's a lot of hot water going on around here where I live. So.
And since we are heading towards the end of the show, only 10 minutes left, let me ask you, what is the number one book you wish you read before you started your career?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I had a 28-year career as a professor at a small university. And towards the end of my tenure, I joined up with a group of other women and we read a book called Surviving Sexism in Academia, Strategies for Feminist Leadership by Christy Cole. And that book put language on what I had been experiencing in academia for so long. And because it's deeply seated in patriarchy, and we didn't really listen to women and women in science forever. And in fact, there are many men that got credit for pieces of discovery in science that actually was really done by a woman. And that patriarchy is still very much was very much alive in the school that I taught at. Men made more than women, even if women were producing more, publishing more, presenting more at conferences, whatever. There were men that still made more than women. And I wish I knew that. I probably would have, that hot water would have started a little sooner with me, and I'd have probably done more about that. In my career, which I don't mind standing up, but I think I needed it to become clearer, like I could see it better. And that book really helped me with that.
Fabulous work. Well, you're doing so much, and with your books and with your work so far, I think you're achieving great things. Yesterday, I listened to Jamie Lee Curtis, who said she's not afraid of dying so much. She's actually afraid of all this creativity being wasted. So she decided to work her ass off and to create more plays, do some actions, and really work hard. Let's imagine that you could meet anyone in the world for a private breakfast, Dr. Tina. Who would it be and where would you choose to meet?
Oh gosh, I would definitely sit down with Michelle Obama. I've resonated with so much that she has said and read and written. I don't know. I think I would probably go to Martha's Vineyard or someplace peaceful, and or Orcas Island is another favorite place of mine in the San Juan Islands. And I would sit and just talk with her about motherhood, about leadership, about women, about the United States, about America, about patriarchy, some of the things we've talked about today. And I would want to hear more about what her ideas are that we can do as a community of people who are aware of what helps people thrive. But that's men or women, but people who are aware of what helps humans thrive. What can we do if we come together to help America really live more into its capacities as a very privileged country? Yeah, I would just be really curious to hear about that. And I would love hearing her stories about motherhood and about working and motherhood. I mean, just all the things that women have to face. I'd just love to have just a relaxing conversation with her. She's a very wise and grounded woman that I very much admire. You had asked a question about quotes that guide my life. And I'll read two of them. It's hard for me to decide because I actually really appreciate both of these quotes. So the first one is by Henry Miller, and it says, "The aim of life is to live, and to live means to be aware, joyously, drunkenly, serenely, divinely aware." And I love that quote because it invites presence. It invites paying attention, not living in the past, not living in what needs to happen in the future, but living here. And I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the words that he used: aware, joyously, drunkenly, serenely, divinely aware. So that's one of my favorite quotes. Another one comes from Henry Nouwen. And it said, "Did I offer peace today? Did I bring a smile to someone's face? Did I say words of healing? Did I let go of my anger and resentment? Did I forgive? Did I love?" These are the real questions. I must trust that the little bit of love that I sow now will bear fruit in this world and in the life to come. And I think that is a quote that orients us on how to live. And if we did that collectively as humanity, we would see so much thriving and discovery come out because people would be safe to do that. I can't hear you.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Excellent. Apologies for that break of voice. Um, Thank you very much for your life lesson quotes. Finally, Dr. Tina, if you could give our listeners one bold challenge or a piece of actionable advice to help them make their lives better or their future better.
Oh gosh. We've covered so many important things today, I think. I guess I would invite people to reflect on how valuable they see themselves. And if they find that they have an inner critic or that they second guess themselves or they don't feel confident in themselves, I would say go through the Shameless Parenting book, read some of those books, and see if that doesn't heal some of the places where you thought that you weren't valuable enough. That something happened, something was said to you or whatever. And that book kind of will walk you through a lot of different kinds of situations. And the books that I recommend that you read along the way that you can get at the library, and most of them are small, but they're good. It's going to help reveal if there were places that invited you to think of yourself as less valuable than you really are. So I would just invite you to see the miraculous, delightful human that you are, and that we need you to live as fully and authentically as you can. Like, that's the gift that you will give the world, is to be most you and to see yourself as incredibly valuable. I often say my definition of human is radically valuable and radically imperfect, right? We're all still learning. We're all on a journey. We're all on a pilgrimage. So that's okay. That doesn't take away from your eternal value.
Progress over perfection. We keep reminding our viewers about that. Finally, I would like to bring this quotation: silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Elie Wiesel says. Dr. Tina, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your knowledge with us today. And that's it from episode 178 of the PhD live stream. Thanks to our guest, Dr. Tina Shermer-Sellers. And next week, we're gonna host Corey Walker. She's gonna talk about navigating Instagram for business. Thank you so much to our lovely commenters, Olga Vesina, Cindy Gallop, and Patrick L. Young. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes: look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder, even if some days you can't face yourself in the mirror. Look at yourself and praise yourself. Today is your day to hug the future, hug the positivity you want. Thank you very much to our lovely audience, and see you next week.